Greetings and welcome to Hidden Scriptural Truths Revealed. This deals with the fact that Egyptians and Phoenicians occupied sections of Australia long before Cook and the British arrived. The killing of Aboriginal people by the British colonial settlers will be dealt with later. Due to the amount of evidence found concerning the Egyptians having also visited Australia with the Phoenicians, we have had to modify this note. We are shocked at the vast amount of facts that have been hidden, prompting this book, Pyramids in the Pacific, The Unwritten History of Australia. We were led to believe that the Egyptians only had reed boats, that they sailed on the Nile. We need to rectify this with facts. An Egyptologist, Dr. Boyo Okinga of Macquarie University, Sydney, states that Egyptian craft that hugged the coast would never have sailed to Australia. Facts show him wrong. 1. The Phoenicians traded with Egypt for linen sails and papyrus. The Egyptians considered the Phoenician cities of Tyre, Sidon, Bablos as favourite cities for their import of cedar for shipbuilding, which was supplemented by their own acacia wood. 2. In 600 BCE, Egyptians and Phoenicians sailed together in the famous mission to circumnavigate Africa on behalf of Pharaoh Necho III. 3. Egyptian rulers had been sailing the Mediterranean from the Bronze Age, 3300 to 2100 BCE. 4. The earliest ship under sail appears on an Egyptian vase dated 3500 BCE. 5. The leading merchants in Alexandria wanted to trade with countries to the east in order to export their copper and other minerals from the Sinai Peninsula. The Red Sea was the logical route. 6. Ancient Egyptians had these ports on the Red Sea: Myos, Hormos, Peloteras, Leucio, Liman, Berenica, and on the Sinai Peninsula, Ezion, Gibeah. 7. Egypt also has the oldest harbour in the world, found by archaeologists, called Wadi el-Jaf, 112 miles south of Suez. It is 1,000 years older than any other harbour in the world. It was built 4,500 years ago in the 4th dynasty of Pharaoh Khufu. 8. The Khufu ship, 142 feet long and 19 feet wide, is the oldest intact ship in the world, built with acacia planks and is described as a masterpiece of woodcraft. It was used to transport massive stone blocks down the river from Aswan. 9. Here it is interesting to note, refer to the Bible, 1 Kings chapter 9 verse 26. And King Solomon built a navy in Ezion-Geber. Apparently the ships of Tarshish were broken there and were unable to return to Tarshish. A different type of ship was built there. Refer to Chronicles chapter 20 verses 36 and 37 and 1 Kings chapter 22 verse 48. 10. As the Phoenicians and the Egyptians wanted to trade with the East, the shortest route would be through the Red Sea and not via the Mediterranean. We are now going to follow the Phoenician Egyptians east to see if Captain Cook really discovered Australia as the world has been told. Here we run into a huge cover-up by the Australian government, as the following information devastates their politically inspired origin. The historical proof of Phoenician-Egyptian occupation thousands of years ago with burial sites that has made the government paranoid about possible land claims. Serena is part of a huge complex now being uncovered that researchers battle against established dogmas, political censorship, and laws preventing excavation with possible fines or jail sentence. The academics refuse to participate on political grounds. Then we have a critic and expert archaeologist, Dr. Bryce Barker, stating that there is no proof of Phoenicians ever having been in Queensland or New South Wales, and what has been found shows a strong Aboriginal heritage. So the Aborigines arrived in Australia on the ships of Tarshish. Utter rubbish, as you will find out. Listen to the video and read the notes to decide for yourselves whether he is just an evolutionist, Bible scoffer, sadly, or there are just so many with the same warped explanations. Suddenly, silver is found in abundance in Jerusalem, and in 1 Kings chapter 10, verse 27, it is reported that King Solomon made silver as plentiful as stones. The world's largest silver deposits are in the Americas, in the United States, Mexico and Peru. It is a fact that peacocks were only found in Burma, Java, Sri Lanka and India, yet Solomon's ships returned with peacocks. So the route to this silver is through Indonesia, the Torres Strait in North Australia, via Samoa, Tahiti, to Mexico and Peru. When a ship approaches northwest Australia, West Kimberley, near Derby, are the islands of the Buccaneer Archipelago, at the entrance to King Sound. There is a rip tide in the sound of 10 knots, a rise and fall of tide being up to 35 feet and very dangerous. 12. Here a salvage diver, Alan Robinson, found a banana-shaped wreck of what he believes to be a Phoenician ship. A bronze plate was retrieved and declared by a university official to be of Phoenician origin. An interesting fact is that this wreck is near an overgrown mine of galena, which is an ore of silver, lead and zinc. 13. Kevin Gavi Duncan, an Aboriginal leader, states that they shared ceremonies with these people because their beliefs were similar: sun worship, Mother Earth, and they arrived long before the Europeans. They were originally called Wangenia and came across the Indian Ocean in great vessels. 14. Kimberley in northwest Australia was their first landing near the Buccaneer Archipelago, where the wreck was spotted. The Wangenian cave paintings are there together with Egyptian glyphs. 15. Aboriginal tribes in this area speak many Egyptian words in their language. In 1931, a Northwest Kimberley professor, A.P. Elkin, professor of anthropology at Sydney University, came upon a tribe who had never met a white man. The elders greeted him with the ancient Masonic secret handshake, and that they had startling Semitic features. 16. Gary Simon Jagamara, an Aboriginal leader and healer, said these people came to Australia and later also went back. 17. They had watched their method of how the boomerang was used and took back with them originals made from the local ironbark. 18. Egypt's King Tut had a vast collection of boomerangs with the original artwork that was found in his tomb. 19. According to the Cairo Times in 1982, archaeologists working at Fayoum near the Siwa Oasis uncovered fossils of kangaroos and other Australian marsupials. The second landing of the Phoenicians and Egyptians was on the Cape York Peninsula, where the following discoveries were found to the south. 20. A scarab beetle carved in onyx was dug up near the Nepean River outside Penrith. Also at Penrith is a 50-foot stepped pyramid. 21. At Gordonvale, an Egyptian scarab was found. It is just below Cairns, near the great granite Walsh's Pyramid, now overgrown with soil and vegetation, that became well known in 1985 with Marilyn Pye's investigation of Egyptian sites. She is nicknamed the Pyramid Lady. 22. At Rockhampton, Queensland, not far north of Gympie, a pyramid 90 foot high with its four sides facing the points of the compass. Egyptian and Phoenician rock inscriptions are found in the vicinity as well as granite blocks. 23. 50 miles north of Sydney is a hidden secret ravine of rock walls with Egyptian hieroglyphs carved deeply into the rock. Raymond Jackson, an Egyptologist, deciphered and sent his translation to the Cairo Library, and Dr. Dia Ghazi replied saying he was right on track, calling the symbols Proto-Egyptian, approximately 4,600 years old. 24. One set of symbols tells of a great expedition to the southern world, 800 to 500 BCE. 25. The other set speaks of another pyramid built for a wealthy Egyptian ruler, Lord Nefertiru, who was a member of the Egyptian royal family. He and his brother Nefer-Diesem were shipwrecked, and he was leading an expedition along the east coast when he was bitten by a snake, died, and was interned. 26. Ancient Aboriginal legends tell how people in large ships with bird-headed prows sailed into Gympie, now 34 miles inland, and dug holes in the hills. Evidence of ancient mining and smelting was found there. 27. Just south of Gympie at Noosaville, 127 miles north of Brisbane, an Egyptian jade ankh, or cross of life, was unearthed. 3,000 years ago, the Noosa River used to link the lakes Koriba and Kuthutharaba until the sea receded, explaining why Gympie, that used to be at the coast, is now 34 miles inland. 28. The Gympie Pyramid is an ancient terraced hill, 100 foot high. Each terrace is 4 foot high by 8 foot wide, and it is on the outskirts of Gympie, off the Tin Can Bay Road. In 1856, the first white man in the area recorded it. Around it are stones that are magnetic, as well as 400 ancient inscriptions on rocks. 5 strange rock statues were also found there, but were removed for examination by appropriate authorities in Queensland. The first 4 disappeared, whereabouts unknown, buried or exposed of. The 5th, only after public outcry, was returned to Gympie, where it was on display for many years in the Gympie Civic Centre. It is now in the Gympie Museum. To get rid of uncomfortable evidence, the Australian government arranged for the pyramid to be bulldozed onto a barge and dumped into the sea. The rock was dumped off Fraser Island, and the 10 to 12 men involved in this despicable operation were required to sign secrecy documents by the Australian government never to discuss this work. 29. The wall surrounding the Gympie Church is 264 metres long by 2.5 metres high, and is made with beautifully dressed ancient stones that are all irregular. Some blocks have 6 sides, while a corner block has 14 sides. This is not a European culture, where standard size blocks are used. An archaeologist who studies ancient structures like Machu Picchu, Cusco in Peru, others in Mexico, Egypt, etc., states the design is the same and dates to Inca times. He pointed out that the very small stones inserted gives the structure flexibility against earthquakes. These stones from the original site must have been carefully disassembled to be reused in this wall. 30. Near Toowoomba in the Gympie area, a group of 17 granite stones were discovered, bearing ancient inscriptions that have been identified as Phoenician and deciphered to read, "Guard the shrine of YHWH's message." Another reads, "God of Gods." 31. In the Gympie area, a stone ape statue, 4,000 years old, was unearthed in 1966 on Mr. Dal K. Berry's Volvi property. The ape is squatting and is made of a conglomerate iron stone representing the Egyptian god Thoth. 32. In the same area, another stone ape holding a towel or cross of life was found by a Widgeshire workman, Mr. Dave George, near the Traveston crossing. It is to be believed to be Thoth in ape form. Thoth was the god of writing and wisdom depicted by an ape by the Egyptians until 3000 BCE. It then became an ibis-headed deity who recorded the judgments of souls of Amenti, the afterworld. 33. Freshwater Point in the Serena area has 2 artificial harbours and a ruined stone jetty 400 metres in length, 30 metres wide and 5 metres high. Next to this jetty are slag heaps from furnaces for gold, mercury and copper ore. Also a typical Phoenician loading platform of granite stone set in furnace slag. The furnace bricks are made of local dolomite and slag of typical Canaanite pattern of the half cubic brick. Evidence of refining consisting of a dogleg sluice from a reservoir was uncovered. It is interesting to note that Freshwater Point even today resembles as it must have looked like 3,000 years ago with the freshwater reservoir. There is also a 15-degree slipway marked graves, fish traps that could have fed hundreds of crew. A coral-encrusted scepter was found at the shipyard and when cleaned showed the head of the Canaanite god Bel. Plants originating from Nigeria, called the Polynesian potato, was brought into the country for food and medicine. It now grows wild in the Serena area. 34. Just south of Serena is Rockhampton on the Fitzroy River that is navigable for 35 miles up to Rockhampton from Port Alma. A farmer ploughed up a large ironstone slab that can now be seen in the Rex Gilroy Museum near Tamworth, New South Wales. On it is another Phoenician inscription. When deciphered reads, "Ships sail from this land under the protection of YHWH to Dan." Dan was an ancient Phoenician trade center in northwest Israel, just south of Tyre. This discovery was reported in an issue of the Ravenshoe magazine. 35. South of Rockhampton, on the banks of the Hawkesbury River, are figures of Egyptian, Phoenician and Syrian styles carved into the rocks. 36. At Woy Woy, at the mouth of the Hawkesbury River, are Egyptian hieroglyphs. 37. To confirm the Egyptian origin, at Woy Woy is the Egyptian rock carving of Anubis, the Egyptian god of the dead. 38. At Lapstone Gorge, Egyptian rock carvings are found near the Nepean River. At Grose, it joins with the Grose River, and both run into the Hawkesbury River, that is navigable for 54 miles from, or 100 kilometers from the sea, until the Windsor Bridge. 3,000 years ago, when there was no bridge, it could have joined with the Nepean River, which is navigable for another 40 kilometers. Egyptians and Phoenicians could have penetrated deep into the country. We now understand why the video on South America refers to the stone found in Brazil and deciphered reads, "We are Sidonian Canaanites embarked from Ezion Geber on the Red Sea, with 10 ships that sailed round Africa." The lure of exotic spices from the east and silk from China caused the ancient Phoenicians and Egyptians to be drawn in that direction. Departure from the Red Sea was logical. Secondly, a voyage down the east coast of Africa to South America was quicker with the prevailing ocean current heading south together with the southeast winds. Then from the Cape, the southeast trade winds would blow them across to Brazil. Whereas from the Mediterranean, it meant experiencing the Atlantic doldrums and a strong northerly current of South America. From this video, it is clear that all discoveries were made on the coast or up rivers that were navigable from the sea. We now come to the massacres of the Aboriginal people by the British colonial settlers. That is very well documented. Yes, apartheid should not be condoned, but South African settlers never massacred the black people like the 10,000 to 14,000 Aboriginal people who were massacred by the British settlers, who also treated the Aboriginal people despicably, displaced them from their traditional lands, and relocated them in missions and reserves, while their citizen rights were also denied. Between 1910 and 1970, there was a forced children removal, and they were called the Stolen Generations. The Guardian reports the killing times, the massacres of Aboriginal people Australians must confront. Shootings, hunting, poisoning, and children driven off cliffs. This is a record of state-sanctioned slaughter. Slavery was only abolished in 1970. It appears Prime Minister Malcolm Fraser and certain rugby players of the 1970s who banned the Springboks were in denial of their own racial history. This is just the height of hypocrisy. We shall now head via the East Indies to New Zealand. P.S. Please enter YouTube with Phoenicians in Australia and a wealth of other sites. Even the Lebanese government is getting interested. So should the Egyptian government. Perhaps DNA from burial sites can link relatives with the ancient discoverers of Australia, so they can lay claim to Australia and share it with the Aborigines, with whom they got on so well, traded, and did not massacre them. A government that seeks to destroy and ban historical discoveries will reap what they sow. The herding of school children into a stadium to be forcibly jabbed indicates that they just love control, as their history proves. George Orwell's book, 1984, predictions are just becoming more real. I hope you enjoy this video, and please share it if you do, especially with children that are still at school and are being told absolute historical junk. Shalom until next time.